Hi, guys. Welcome to tonight's live chat. It's so good to see you. I was just sitting here looking at the chat box, and I saw that I think Anne has a new job. Congratulations. That's so good for you. Um, but I saw you say something about being late. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I've done that in my past. Before I went into private practice, working on campus as a college student, and I was working in the admissions office. So literally meeting students before they would, decide to choose my university to attend. And I was late every single day. And it was only by the grace of God that I didn't get fired. And then I worked in a daycare and I was kind of like there sometimes too. So don't feel bad, Anne. It happens. It happens. And thank you so much, Jessica J. That was so cute. She's like, Tamara always makes everything better and validating. I love that. Thank you so much. And I don't want you to feel bad. We're human. We mess up, right? So I want to start just by thanking you guys for such compassion yesterday that you showed me at the loss of my uncle. I really appreciate you. We are all very, very saddened. And my heart is heavy for my mom. My heart is heavy for my cousin. My heart is heavy for my brother. They depended so much on my uncle. But I really appreciate you for showing me love and compassion and, making this time for me a lot better just by giving me words of wisdom yesterday. Some of you contacted me behind the scene with beautiful encouragement, prayer. Thank you so very much. I want you to know that you are appreciated. Let's jump in. Okay, guys, this conversation is about the psychology of guilt, but it's also about post-toxic family abuse. That's a long string of words. Post-toxic family abuse. So what happens to you as you're going through? We're going to decode this tonight. What happens to you as you're going through this very unhealthy, toxic family dynamic with tons of covert abuse, emotional manipulation, lack of freedom and autonomy, criticism and judgment, and it kind of puts you in this bind of being the black sheep, the scapegoat, the manipulated. How do you move yourself through this? And so we're going to talk about that. I want to highlight for you tonight some reasons why you may be carrying what's called the G word, which is guilt. Guilt. Many of the clients that I see right now are not struggling with that. But there has been a period in my time, in my time in private practice, where I've treated nothing but people who are the result or the product of a very abusive family dynamic that has led to the carrying of burdensome guilt, literally burdensome guilt. Some people feel guilt on a daily basis, and they may or may not know why. Other people experience guilt through certain pieces of time, right? Or certain parts of the year. So let's say someone's birthday or a holiday or an anniversary, there may be some guilt that you're carrying, right? But really what we're highlighting in tonight's live chat is that dysfunctional family dynamic. I'm going to highlight covert abuse and some of the things that you may have experienced and how you have maybe struggled with carrying guilt that doesn't belong to you. I'm going to repeat that again because I feel like you guys need to hear it again. We're going to talk about and dissect guilt that should have nothing to do with you, guilt that you don't have to carry, guilt that shouldn't impact you. Coming out of a family dynamic where maybe you were blamed, maybe you were minimized, maybe you were harmed, maybe you were lied on, Maybe you were painted to be something that you're not. If that is the case, you most likely have some guilt that's buried on the inside. And perhaps you have some guilt that you feel everybody can see, or guilt that just talks to you throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month, and you can't get it to shut up, right? It's like this thing talking to you all the time. And it's telling you that you should be carrying a certain amount of guilt, when the reality is it's kind of pseudo guilt, because it's not your own. It's guilt that doesn't belong to you. So we're going to talk about that in tonight's live chat. I like what M&L Odell just said. She says, guilty by association. M&L Odell, it's good to see you tonight. Welcome. There are some family members who do feel like there's this guilt by association. You know what I mean? I'm associated with this very unhealthy, toxic family dynamic, and I just carry guilt because I'm interconnected with them. That is something else that I see. Let's talk just briefly about some of the reasons why you may be carrying guilt. Because I think this is a good foundation before we start delving into the challenges. We're going to talk about traumatic bonding very briefly. I'm going to explain what that is. And then I'm also going to give you some information on, or tips on, how to overcome generational guilt within your family. Because guilt doesn't necessarily have to be something that you are just experiencing. It can be something that your family generation has experienced, or the family generations with an S on the end. There may be guilt throughout the lifespan, or throughout different times in your family. So we're going to highlight that as well. Okay, let's jump in, guys. Okay, let's talk about some of the things that causes maybe that heavy burden of guilt that you should not be carrying. Research suggests that abuse that happens to you and your family, it is often intergenerational. It's not just you. It has maybe impacted you, but generational or intergenerational guilt may have started way back with great grandparents, great uncles, great nieces, great cousins, whatever. It may have started way back there and somehow got repeatedly perpetuated throughout generations within your family. And now it tends to be something that you are holding on to. Bondage is often a really big piece of the puzzle when it comes to burdensome guilt. And the burdensome guilt that I'm talking about is guilt that has been placed upon you, or guilt that you have assumed, because of being in this kind of toxic, dysfunctional family dynamic. Bondage is often the vehicle by which guilt is reinforced and stays in your life. It is layered. Guilt is layered in these kind of families, meaning there's always one level of guilt, another level of guilt, another level of guilt. And it's really hard to, number one, determine how to escape it. And then number two, it's really hard to determine if you are feeling guilt because you are guilty, or are you feeling guilt because it has been placed upon you. And I tend to lean towards the view that you're feeling guilt because it has been placed upon you. You will feel this bondage, this guilt, this trap of emotional guilt post toxic family. I'll put it that way. Once you leave your family, so it's after leaving your family, or going no contact, or minimizing contact, or, just saying, you know what, I don't want to deal with you anymore. Don't talk to me. Don't call me. Don't text me. Don't send me social media messages. Just leave me alone. However you have decided to leave, let's say you're on the other side. So now you're no longer talking to family or communicating with family as much. You're probably going to feel some guilt as a result. The reality is, it is really and honestly just bondage that you are feeling gripped by. It doesn't necessarily have to be guilt. That's an interesting separation, right? Because some people believe that, okay, I'm just feeling guilt. No, you're feeling bondage, and that guilt just hangs on to you. And how do toxic, dysfunctional families cause you to feel this guilt? Well, it's when somebody in your family has a dominating, controlling, manipulative power over you and other people in the family that causes you to later feel guilt. So, family member may be a narcissistic mom, cold, callous father, manipulative sibling. What you're likely to experience is something known as fear, obligation, and guilt. You guys know what this is, right? So let me put this in the chat box. Fear, obligation, guilt. So we call it FOB. Okay. I didn't come up with that. I'm going to post her information in the chat box so that you can learn, if you don't already know, a little bit more about fear, obligation, and guilt. And how does fear, obligation, and guilt come about? Well, dominating, controlling, abusive family members who manipulate the dynamic. Okay, that's how fear, obligation, and guilt impacts your life. That's how it kind of enters your life. A dominating, controlling, callous, and cold individual within the family dynamic makes you feel like you need to assume some kind of guilt. In these very unhealthy dynamics, there is absolutely no what we call family individuation. Family individuation. I'm going to put this in here as well. Family individuation. What is that? Right? It sounds big. That's kind of how psychology works anyway. It sounds big when it's really not. Okay. It sounds big. It's really not. Here's what it is. Family individuation. It's the process of developing and maintaining freedom, autonomy, right? Self-reliance, and independent action. So family individuation is the process by which you learn within a healthy family independent action, freedom, and autonomy. Family individuation, the process by which you learn, develop, maintain freedom, autonomy, and independent action. That is family individuation. The family does an awesome job at supporting you, giving you this lift off, loving you and telling you that I'm going to be there for you, but you got to get a job. You got to go to school. You got to make use of your time. I'm going to support you. I'm going to love you. I'm going to make sure you get there. Family individuation. I'm not jealous of you. I'm not going to abuse you, right? I'm not going to compete with you. I'm not going to fill your head up with things that are incorrect. Like you're not very smart. Nobody's ever going to love you. I don't intimidate and bully you. When there is healthy family individuation, it's a liftoff. It's literally a stand on my hands and I will literally lift you up. That's family individuation. Autonomy is fostered here. When there is an very unhealthy, toxic family dynamic where there is intergenerational guilt, where there is abusive behaviors that are reinforced, the issue is family individuation doesn't exist there, right? Family individuation does not exist there. You are literally on your own. And a lot of times being on your own can foster and reinforce your feelings of guilt. Because if you walk away from your family and no one calls you, no one sends you an email, nobody texts you, nobody asks other family members or friends about you, sends you anything on your birthday or holidays, what's going to happen to you? You're probably going to digest all of those things that are painful, right? That's a lot of painful, data internalize. Whew, nobody's calling me, nobody's texting me, nobody's wondering what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking. Nobody loved me enough to ask me why I chose this route. Nobody seemed to understand that I was feeling overwhelmed. Nobody figured out that I didn't want to be the black sheep. Whatever the dynamic within your family, you internalize and ingest that. That's a lot of pain. That's a lot, right? And so what do you end up doing? Well, then you end up internalizing feelings of guilt. Oh, it's because of me that this happened. There must be something wrong with me. I must not be lovable. They don't like me and I don't know why. What did I ever do to them? They don't like me because I have a mental health problem. I'm not married yet, or I'm abusing drugs and alcohol, or they don't care about me because I'm not where they are financially, or they don't love me because they wished I wasn't born. Whatever the dynamic, it's very easy for you to swallow and digest all that guilt, right? And what's interesting is abusive family behaviors reinforce that guilt, right? Abusive family behaviors reinforces that guilt. Why are they treating me this way? I must deserve it. Why are they not calling me or talking to me, or at least trying to apologize to me, or at least wonder where I am? There must be something wrong with me. And so then you internalize that. I once had a client, she was doing a very, very immature thing though, but I'm going to pull from this case just to give you an example. This client left her family, wanted absolutely nothing to do with her parents after years of dealing with two siblings who were adopted. And she felt like her parents adopted two siblings and loved them and gave them everything that they needed and pushed her to the side. The reality from my point of view, when she told me the details, it took me a little over a year before I could really get a clear case conceptualization. A case conceptualization is I'm looking at this client and I've got to look at them as a whole, right? And I've got to look at these different things that makes them who they are, their temperament, their biology, their genes, their attitude, their childhood trauma, their belief systems, their religion or lack thereof. So a case conceptualization, you guys don't need to know this, but I'm just letting you know what it is. It helps me kind of put everything on the table so I can look at my client and figure out, does this go there? Does that go get there? Does that belong there? You know what I mean? So my understanding of her was highly, highly jealous of her adopted siblings, manipulative of her parents, and self-centered to the core, okay? But the reality here for her, in her mind, I'm unlovable, nobody cares about me, and my adopted siblings took my place. What's interesting about her is she felt a lot of guilt after walking away, and she didn't know quite what to do with all that guilt. So she sought me. I took her on as a client. We did maybe a year's worth of therapy before she completely dropped out, or I referred her. I can't remember which one. And I remember her telling me that she doesn't understand why her parents will not reach out to her. You know, she didn't understand why her parents wouldn't reach out, email, text, social media, the list goes on. She said, obviously, they don't love me, because if they loved me, they would do A, B, and C. And what was interesting about this case is even though she wanted to go no contact, their abusive behavior at times reinforced her guilt. It reinforced her guilt. So there she is saying, they don't love me. She interpreted their behaviors towards her to be abusive, and it reinforced her guilt. So she felt even more guilty for walking away. Does that make sense, guys? So it's a really interesting dynamic. And there definitely is a lot of fear, obligation, and guilt at the core of these issues. Before we go to the chat box, I want to get you to process a couple more things. Okay, guys? Then I'm going to go to the chat box because I see you have a lot that you guys are processing already. So we talked about family individuation, right? you have to have what family theorist Bowen calls a differentiated self. So let me add this in here. So this is Bowen, and we would actually call it Bowenian theory. Whoop. Okay, Bowenian theory is family therapy. What do we want to call it? I'm going to say family therapy lens. Okay, Bowen, who came up with Bowen family therapy, viewed families as operating like a system, kind of like a train system or a car engine. You lift up the hood of your car, you look around, and you're like, oh my Lord, that is the window washer fluid. That must be the transmission oil. That must be for the gas tank. That probably is for another system. I have nothing to help me stand on. I have no clue what that is. Oh, there's the coolant right there. So looking underneath the hood of a car, kind of picture that as Bowen's theory of family. He sees family as a system, and it's a family that works very much like a car system. There's a variety of different areas under the hood that helps the car to move forward, right? And so his family therapy approach, which is Bowenian family therapy, and basically he says you have to have what's called a differentiated self in order to have some kind of vision of who you are. It's a self-identity. So we call it differentiated self, and it's an identity that you develop within your family. Differentiated self. When you are in a family where you have taken on the majority of the guilt, when you have been blamed and manipulated, when you have felt ousted and misunderstood, you don't have the ability to develop an identity that is aside from your family. So you kind of carry the burden of the family. You carry the dysfunctional behavior. You carry the inappropriate attitudes and beliefs. You carry all the ugly things of the family dynamic on your shoulders, and it turns into guilt over time. So you don't have any room to develop an identity that is your own. And sometimes because of that, you can slip into, traps and holes in your life that it's hard to kind of climb out of, right? And that's because you've assumed guilt, negativity onto your own shoulders, and you're trying to carry it. There is absolutely no room for a differentiated self. You're not going to be able to find yourself because you're buried beneath the guilt. Does that make sense, guys? Another theory, which is interesting, is called covert incest. And covert incest, we can also call it emotional incest. I'm going to put this in the chat box as well. So we call this emotional incest or covert incest, okay? And this is a dynamic that can also leave you feeling a lot of guilt from your dysfunctional toxic family system. The idea of covert incest is this, that it's a relationship pattern, often between you and your parents, so between you and mom, between you and dad, where you kind of feel this inappropriate, more of a romantic kind of connection with the parent. Interestingly, you are not to blame for that. It is the parent. It's the mother to her son. The mother, I hate to say this, to her daughter. The father to his daughter, or the father to his son. It's a twisted, sick, skewed dynamic that is often cited in research as the first vehicle of guilt in families where there is abuse, where there is trauma, where there is dysfunction. Covert incest, emotional incest. It's this pattern, this relationship pattern between you and the parent, between the parent and you, that doesn't feel parent-child-like. It feels more like equals, mutuality, reciprocity. Dad likes me. Mom likes me. Kind of a dynamic. And it's a very sick, twisted, skewed dynamic, but it can become a burden to you over time because you're being treated like the surrogate wife, the surrogate husband. You may also be parentified in this dynamic where you're becoming the parent of your younger siblings, right? Your parent may develop this expectation of you that she would develop with her husband or a wife if it's your father, right? And so maybe the idea is in this example, that you go to work every day, you support the family. This may be something you did growing up. You may go to work every day. You may have a small bank account. You may have a vehicle that you drive back and forth. When there is covert incest, mom may ask you, where were you? Why didn't you come in at the time you're supposed to be in? When do you get paid? And you may say next week. And she says, I'm going to need a little bit of money for rent. So make sure that you have it. And you may say, okay, I'll make sure that I have it. And then your mom may say, do you mind making dinner tonight? I'm just so exhausted, right? You may say, sure, mom, why not? I have schoolwork, but I can make some dinner. And mom may say, please make some dinner. I carry this whole household. I'm very tired of doing things on my own. And you may get in that exchange that mom doesn't see you as the child in that dynamic who has a kid's job, right? Who's going to and from, because you're a kid. You have no responsibility. You're just enjoying your young life, excuse me. But when there is covert incest, you're going to feel on the inside like that parent is expecting you to be an equal, is expecting you to show something towards them that should never be the case. You may also be the kind of adult child, or even maybe you were a child or adolescent at the time, that listens to the emotional distress of the parent. So you become the therapist to mom or dad. And that can also place a burden upon your shoulders that later results in a lot of internalized guilt. You may notice within yourself emotional and psychological conflict. Really think of conflict as a flame that's burning within you. And you just want to put it out. You don't know how to get that flame on the inside of you to just go out. Leave me alone. And so psychological and emotional conflict really is like a burning flame, because you can't develop or maintain peace of mind because that conflict within you is so big of a fire. Fear and guilt, as well as intimidation from family, reinforces that flame to keep burning. Right? So guilt, family intimidation, and fear reinforces that flame within you to keep burning. And it just makes life so difficult, right? Abuse within your dysfunctional, toxic family dynamic is really a desire for power and control. It's a desire for power and control. And so if mom, who's a narcissist or very unstable or careless or cold, is abusing you, she wants power and control. If dad, who has the same traits or worse, is abusing you, they want power and control. And so then as you develop over time, you may develop what we call traumatic bonding. Traumatic bonding. I'm going to give you a rundown of what this is. Traumatic bonding is really the idea by which you have a relationship with the individual. So typically in this example, the family member, the parent, the father, the mother, you have this relationship with them. And what happens is the abuser kind of shifts between, you can trust me because I love you, or you better get your act together because you're going to have me beat you up again. Right? So the parent or the family member shifts between love and affection and abuse and terror. Compassion and empathy and violence and abuse. And they shift between those two shelves or two pieces of who they are. And they shift so much that you don't know what to believe. And so one minute you feel you have the strength to say, you know what, I'm not dealing with you anymore. And the next minute you feel like you don't have the strength because you love them so much, right? And so this is depressing. There's often tricky characteristics within a abusive family dynamic that causes you to walk off or walk away feeling guilty. Traumatic bonding is a huge motivator for guilt, because you may feel like, I should have left, I should have gone no contact, I should have told the police, I should have reported them to Child Protective Services, I should have escaped when I could, I should have gone no contact, right? Whatever your shoulds are, you're likely to feel a ton of guilt. Here are some components of traumatic bonding. There's a power differential. So let me add this. To the chat box. So traumatic bonding, I'm going to say traumatic bonding has many elements to it, right? The elements are, okay, a power differential or a power imbalance. What is that? Power differential. I'm up here, you're down here. I use my position of power to manipulate the heck out of you. I utilize the fact that I make more money. I utilize that and I make it your issue. So I abuse you because I make more money than you. I abuse you because people believe me more than you. I abuse you because I look the part and sound the part and nobody will ever be able to find me out. Power imbalance. They're here, you're down here. If you think about domestic violence, what is often one of the reasons why the person can't leave the relationship? Finances, right? Maybe that abuser has better finances. So the power differential is an issue there. You know, maybe your incomes together, or maybe the fact that that's your mother and you're the child, or that's your father and you're the child. Those power dynamics puts them up here and you down here. So there's a power imbalance. The next piece or element of traumatic bonding is isolation and withdrawal. So we're going to put isolation and withdrawal. Isolation. You can't escape that abusive family member. You can't escape that unsafe, toxic family member, parent, because they've isolated you. They don't want you to be around other people, by the way. You know, sometimes isolating you and withdrawing from other people is an intentional act, because if they isolate you, they're not going to be found out. So in order for them to get away with what they're doing, which is manipulating you to death, you know, they have to keep you away from other people. The next component is what we call intermittent abuse or intermittent reinforcement. So intermittent abuse or reinforcement. Okay, here's what happens there. I love you. I want you to be okay. I hope that you are successful in life. I hope that you will just love your mom, love me, your mom, very well. I hope that you will continue to contact me, and the list goes on, right? So that's one part of who they are. 2 or 3 days later, get out of my life. I want nothing to do with you. You've always made me sick. I should have never had you. The list goes on. So intermittent reinforcement means for a period of time, that person is normal, quote unquote normal. And then for another duration of time, right, that niceness falls out and you're going to see their ugly true colors, right? Which was our topic from yesterday. And so that's a scary reality, right? Intermittent reinforcement kind of, you know, it kind of gets you confused, because one minute there is abuse and kindness, right? Next minute, trust and deception. It's like there's always something that happens that makes the good piece of the dynamic non-existent, because they shift between good and bad, dark and light. You know, it's a very sad reality. There's an inability to detach and leave. So there's often an inability to detach and leave. Why? Because of what we just got done talking about. 1 minute they're nice, next minute they're not, right? There's also what we call an intellectual understanding, but no emotional strength. So here's what I mean by that. There's an intellectual, logical understanding that I'm carrying a ton of guilt, that I am being abused, that I have been abused within my family dynamic. But I can't emotionally separate that. Intellectually and cognitively, I know this, but I can't emotionally understand where I need to be. It's like your head has not caught up with your heart, right? And it's almost like your heart has not caught up with your head. So something is back here. It hasn't caught up to what you know. Does that make sense? And it's a really sad reality. The last piece of this is resignation. Sometimes you just give up. You say, you know what? I can't do this. There's a power imbalance. There's isolation. There's intermittent reinforcement. 1 minute they're nice, next minute they're not. There's, with me, this intellectual understanding. I understand what I need to do, but my heart can't seem to carry it out. I'm carrying all this burden on my shoulders. I've assumed responsibility where I shouldn't have. So therefore, I have given up. I'm tired of going back and forth, back and forth. That is traumatic bonding. It is very, very complex. Let me know if you want me to do a video on traumatic bonding where I really break down each piece of traumatic bonding and how that can affect you. So guys, let me go to the chat box. You guys have been chatting it up as I'm trying to break down some very complex concepts. I'm going to give you common challenges that makes your feeling of guilt worse when we come back. Excuse me, when we come back from the chat box. And then I'm going to give you some tips and tools from research and some of my own tools and tips on how to overcome generational guilt. Okay, let me get a sip and then I'm going to go to the chat box. Excuse me. Okay. My friend Smita, welcome to tonight's live chat. It's so good to see you. My friend Smita says, oh my gosh, yes to the video. Okay. Okay, I will cover that for sure. I'm going to put you in. I'm going to highlight your comment here just so I can remember what you're asking me. So my friend Smita once said, hold on, let me keep looking. Daryl Harris, hello and welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. Daryl Harris says traumatic bonding would be an awesome topic. Okay, so good, so good. Glad you like that. That's so sweet. Thank you so much, my friend Smita. That's awesome. Thank you. Coral Sky, I'm just going to say hello and welcome. It's good to see you in tonight's live chat. Thank you for that. I hope this will be a helpful topic. Okay. Shauna Thompson. Shauna Thompson, hello and welcome. It's good to see you tonight. Shauna Thompson says, this is me right now. Traumatic bonding. Please do a video on this. People around me don't seem to understand why I'm not happy now. I'm free from my family. Absolutely. Because you're carrying a lot of baggage from that family dynamic, right? So 100%, you want the video as well? We'll definitely do the video. Looks like I have a handful of people who do definitely want to see that video. So I will put it on the list. Stay tuned. In Yahweh, one love, already know, caught up. Hello and welcome. It's good to see you in tonight's live chat. You're welcome. You're welcome. All right, let's keep moving. Dr. Right Life, I'm going to just put your comment up on the screen. Hello and welcome. It's good to see you in tonight's live chat. Okay. Brandy Nuance, hello and welcome. It's good to see you tonight. NGO, it's good to see you as well. Let me see what you're saying. What are you saying to me? You said, I'm sorry, Tamara, for asking the same question a zillion times. Can you make a video? It's okay. Can you make a video about narcissistic toxic people and their obsession with filth and hoarding? Pretty please. I don't know the research on that, but I will put it on the list. Okay. I'll put it on the list. I tend to only talk about topics that I've had personal, professional experience with, clinical training on, or it's something that I'm certified to talk about. You know what I mean? But yes, I will look up the research and kind of see if that's something I can maneuver. If it is, I'll make sure I do a video on it for sure. Okay. Peacemaker, hello, or Peace Seeker, excuse me. Hello and welcome. It's good to see you in tonight's live chat. Peace Seeker says, I already had a diagnosis for years. The trauma escalated my disability rapidly and caused complex PTSD, and my life expectancy shortened. I totally understand that. Totally understand that. Yep. Trauma escalated my disability rapidly. Yes, it does. Remember yesterday, I don't think you were with us yesterday, Peace Seeker. We did the ACEs questionnaire at the very end of the live chat. I thought that was a little bit of an insightful piece for all of you. So I sprung it on you guys and thought, you know what, we're going to do the ACEs questionnaire. I suggest that you go back to my live chat from yesterday. Go ahead and click on it. I made sure to put some timestamps so that all you have to do is click on the time and it'll take you right to what we were talking about. Excuse me. So I would go back, click on the ACEs questionnaire. You should be able to get the link and take the ACEs questionnaire if you haven't already. It's going to show you what your number is. You know, the higher, the worse, the lower, the better. And it sounds like you have a physiological disability at this point, right? And it's kind of taking your ability to function lower, right? And so you highlight exactly what the ACEs questionnaire is highlighting, which is trauma often leads to physiological disabilities, physiological conditions and challenges. You know, for me, whenever I'm seeing a client that has intense post-traumatic stress disorder, they have chronic stress, they have acute stress, something recently has just blown up, something has happened to them. I often find that it impacts their mental health. And sometimes their mental health impacts their physical health. So it's all interconnected, you know? Amy999, hello and welcome. It's good to see you in tonight's live chat. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate you. This was not intentional. You know how, for curly, so I'm a curly girl, okay? More of a wavy girl at times, but I'm a curly girl. And I have a lot of hair. So sometimes, this is a woman thing, guys. I'm sorry, this is going to be very brief. But sometimes I have one of those Friday, Saturday, Sundays where I'm like, I don't feel like washing my hair. I don't feel like doing anything with my hair. I don't even feel like sitting up or standing up to do anything with my hair. We're not detangling and we're not going through this today. So what can I do to look the most presentable? I'll put it that way. And I was like, a bun. That's what I'm going to do today. So it kind of makes you look fancy, right? There's some meaning for why this is like this today. Amy, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I have a feeling that you do. Most of you gals on here probably know what I'm talking about. Captain Commenter, hello and welcome. It's good to see you back tonight. Captain Commenter says, I was too scared to be a truth teller because of all the abuse. Does that make sense? 100%. Really what happens there is you don't know how to stand on your own 2 feet sometimes when all you've experienced is being beat down. And there may be some fear of retaliation. There may be some fear of being disliked. There may be some fear of being misunderstood or, miscategorized. And so it makes sense that you would say, you know what, I'm going to back out of this. I'm not going to say anything. I don't want any more challenge or trouble. And within a family dynamic, sometimes it can feel like you are being ganged upon by family members, and who wants to go through that pain? So you just kind of back out of it and say, I'm not going to say anything about the abuse, and depending on the culture of your family will determine for you whether you're going to feel okay telling what's happening to you. So African American families, Hispanic and Latino families, Native American families, Mexican families, you have in those families, you have the dynamic of don't tell anybody outside of this family what is happening to you. We don't share with the outside world. Or you may get this feeling within your family that if you say something about what you're experiencing, you're going to be challenged and shut down. And who wants to deal with that, right? So you kind of just stay quiet. Totally get you. Lil Johan, it's good to see you. Welcome back, my friend. And thank you for being a member for 1 whole month. That is so awesome. No, I have to look at it. I definitely have to look at it. Okay, here's what happens. My Instagram is like, slowly growing, and I don't put a lot of energy into it. I'm putting more energy into YouTube right now. So if you send me a direct message, you're probably not going to get me for a while. And that doesn't mean anything that you have sent me I'm ignoring. It just means that I'm preoccupied with other things. You know what I mean? So Lil Johan, I'm going to go back there maybe before the end of the weekend, and I'll look and see what you sent me. Thank you for that. All right, let's keep moving. Give it a think. Hello and welcome. It's good to see you tonight. Kev Dower, it's good to see you in tonight's live chat. I'm kind of starting from the end here, so bear with me. I'll go further up and grab your comments as well. Curtis Draper, hello and welcome. It's good to see you back tonight. Curtis says, this was my life, spot on about it being painful when no one seems to care. Yes, absolutely. Stacy Del Butia, hello and welcome. It's good to see you back tonight. All right, let me keep moving. Kim Matthew, it's good to see you. Welcome back. Yeah, Kim Matthews says, I'm slowly healing. Stress, surviving, trauma causes autoimmune disorders. I have a really good therapist and kind friends. That is so awesome. When you can find a good therapist, you have found a good thing, because we may not always have the answers as therapists, right? Because we are also human. Some things are really hard to figure out. Sometimes things are not clear cut, right? I mean, there could be a variety of reasons as to why your therapist doesn't always hit the nail on the head, right? Doesn't mean they're incompetent, just means they are healthy. But when you find that really good therapist, you can weather the storm with them, even when neither of you know what's going to happen or what is happening. A lot of times with my families, I tend to be very personable with my clients. And so I believe that they can feel that I am with them. Does that make sense? I think that most, if not all of the cases I see per month know that I genuinely care. I'm not just saying I care. I genuinely care. I want to help you navigate this. And I'm here with you, even when I don't have the answers right away. Right? So when you have a good therapist, it's wonderful because you can weather any storm with them, no matter what. Chrism, or Chris M. I'm so sorry for that. Hello and welcome. It's good to see you back. I haven't seen you in such a long time, so it's good to see you. Life with a Lab and More. Hello and welcome to tonight's live chat. Good to see you. Life with a Lab and More says, this is an interesting topic. Healing doesn't happen in the environment that caused the harm unless there is a concerted effort from everyone involved. I agree. I think you may have shared that a couple of live chats ago, and I very much agree with that. Very, very much agree. Kim, hello and welcome. It's good to see you back tonight. Phoenix, it's good to see you. Welcome. Phoenix says, that's why you are so good with the topics you choose. I appreciate how you stay in the lanes you are experiencing. Thank you so much. That's beautiful. I'm going to highlight that. I appreciate you for saying that. Thank you. I like that a lot. Thank you, Phoenix. Oh, no, cancel. I was going to hit the wrong button, guys. Okay, let's keep moving. Axe to Edge, hello and welcome. It's good to see you. Yeah, Axe to Edge. Axe to Edge is saying pseudo guilt. That's the word they have been trying to figure out or trying to remember. Yeah, pseudo guilt. It's guilt that doesn't belong to you. Okay, I'm looking for people I didn't get. Helene Webster, hello and welcome. It's good to see you back tonight. Kim Matthew, you're welcome, and thank you for that. I appreciate you. NGO, did I welcome you? Hello and welcome. It's good to see you in tonight's live chat. I think I may have, but in case I didn't, I'm welcoming you again. And thank you so much for your compassion and condolences as well. It's just such a hard time for us, you know. You were so kind yesterday. But I want to highlight this. I don't even know how to say this screen name. Ooh, Nuff Tushja. Okay, I'm going to put you up on the screen. NGO is sending positive vibes your way, just so that you know. Just so that you know. Joe is also doing the same. Joe, hello and welcome. It's good to see you in tonight's live chat. All right, let's keep moving, guys. Scorpio Bird, hello and welcome. Glad you could come back and be with us tonight. Nuff Tushja. I'm going to say that until you correct me. Thank you so much for that. That's so kind of you. And thank you for the super chat. And I am so sorry that you lost your grandma. Yeah, praying for you and yours as well. It's really hard, isn't it? My mom, actually, I'll share this with you briefly, and then we'll jump back into the content. My mom, she spoke to my uncle today, and he is struggling with dementia, which seems to be progressing in some ways. He could remember that his own parents were deceased. You know, he asked my mom today, do you know how to get in touch with mom and dad, talking about his mom and dad? And I was just like, oh my God, because, you know, it's like we've had loss and death in our life, literally back to back for the past 5 years. And it's like my beloved grandmother, my loved, oh God, I'm trying to say too much at the same time. Beloved late grandmother, when she passed away in 2020, literally my family has gone through a sweeping number of losses, close losses ever since 2020. So it is very, very hard, right? And it's hard when it's kind of like a continuum. You know, you think, okay, we've had 2 funerals, we're good, boom, here's another one. You're like, okay, I think I can deal with this, and then here's 4 more. And it's like, when is this going to slow down? You're almost afraid to ask that, right? Because you don't know what's going to happen. So, you know, may God give you strength at this time. I know it's really, really hard. I totally get you. Totally get you. Nancy R., thank you so much for that. You were so kind as well in previous comments just about supporting me and being such a support to the channel as well. So thank you for that. All right, let's keep moving. Babs, hello and welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. Thank you for that kindness as well. Oops. Ellie Wynn. Oh, geez. What is happening? My friend Smita, thank you so much for that. I appreciate you. Thank you. Ellie Wynn, it's good to see you. Welcome back tonight. A few more comments, guys, and then I'm going to get back into the content so we can wrap up here in a little bit. Oh, man, what did I just do? Guys, it is not a wonderful night on YouTube until I do something wrong. I have to do something wrong. Fifi LaFleur, hello and welcome. It's good to see you tonight. Juniper Clark, haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you. Christina Smith and Jessica J. I think I said hello to you both earlier, but if not, welcome. It's good to see you. And Pulsar, good to see you as well. I think I said that already, but I want to make sure. Regina Myers, how do I get to you? There you are. Regina Myers and Erica, hello to the both of you. It's good to see you. All right, looking for one more comment before we go. I love all the hearts tonight. Yeah, thank you. Such good positivity in the chat. T Bunny Shy, it's good to see you as well. Yeah, I'm going to leave your comment up there for people to see. Welcome to tonight's live chat. It's good to see you. I'm just going to leave that up there for a second. Yeah, it is a tough position. I very much agree with that. Very much agree with that. Hobuni. Okay, if I mispronounced that, I apologize, but welcome to the channel. It's good to have you live with us tonight. All right, let me scroll and see if I can find one more comment before we go back to the content. The Good Glow, I think I said hello to you, but I wasn't sure. So The Good Glow, it's good to see you. And thank you so much for that. I love the positivity that you bring. I appreciate you for that. Okay, Amy999 says, I like my close relatives. They love me, but I can't talk with them when my mother is around. She always tries to minimize me in front of them whenever she gets a chance. You want to ask yourself, in a sense, is this intentional minimizing or is this unintentional? Either way, it's painful. Either way, it's inappropriate, but at least I could give her a little wiggle room if this were unintentional. And I get the sense this may have been intentional, right? Instead of unintentional, excuse me. Okay, challenges. What makes the guilt that you may be carrying worse? Well, let's start with poor personal boundaries. Poor personal boundaries within your family dynamic can make it really difficult for you to determine what your boundaries should be, the intensity of the boundary, right? And when to put it up. So research suggests that if, especially in the area of traumatic bonding or dealing with abusive family, that if you have poor personal boundaries, you're going to feel like your family's manipulating you and triangulating you and minimizing you. And, the list goes on, placing new names and roles upon you. And you're just going to feel 100% manipulated and not very loved. So the scary part about this is you have to have really firm personal boundaries. Enmeshment is going to make the feelings of guilt that you have even worse, right? Because you're so interconnected with your family that you don't know how to pull away and have individuation, right? You don't know how to have this identity of a differentiated nature, right? You don't know how to just stand on your own. So enmeshment can make it worse. You may also have this series of burdensome relationships, not only in your family, but also on the outside of your family. And when that happens, it intensifies guilt when things don't go as planned and when things go wrong, or you have to go no contact, right? Traumatic bonding, we talked about that. That's another thing that can make guilt and the burden that you are carrying so much worse, right? Dysfunctional patterns in your life repeatedly can make guilt worse, right? Because what's happening to you is, I've already experienced this traumatic situation that made me feel guilt. I've experienced that traumatic situation and that's not helping things. And I've also experienced this traumatic situation and that's not helping things. And now here we go. Every relationship I have, there's a dysfunctional dynamic and I don't know why I can't unravel myself from these toxic dysfunctional patterns. And so then what do? You internalize that, you self-blame, you start to believe it's you, and then you live that every day of your life, which means that you're giving it life because it's something that's stuck in your head. You can't get it out. You're starting to believe it. And so you are, in return, having a hard time managing your own guilt, because you're just digesting all these negative things about yourself, right? Giving into the black sheep role. Excuse me. Guilt can cause you to give into the black sheep role. Excuse me, guys. Right? You digest that you are part of a dynamic where you are the problem and they are the angels, You're being labeled the black sheep. It's a very sad and scary reality. But that can perpetuate guilt in your life. It can also jumpstart internal conflict, right? It's that internal conflict, like I said earlier, that's like a burning flame. You want to put it out. You want to stop having this conflict within you. It feels like two battles at the same time. But it's really difficult to do that, right? You may also have this deep need to make sense out of the pain that you're going through. And that can make guilt within you much worse. It can also place a burden upon your shoulders. You have this deep desire to make sense out of things. What happens when you have a deep desire to make sense out of things? You start looking at that person's role and that person's role, right? What you said and what you didn't say, what you did and what you didn't do. Excuse me. How you said A, B, and C when you chose to bring up a matter. All of that can cause friction, within your mind and within your family. And so you may look at that and say, you know what, if I wouldn't have opened my mouth, if I wouldn't have said A, B, and C, if I wouldn't have told the police that, or if I wouldn't have told Aunt Susu that Uncle BB was violating me, life would be better, right? And so then you internalize that, and that becomes additional guilt. That becomes a burden, emotional burden. And if you're not careful, you may hold on to that for many, many years and just add to the intergenerational guilt in your family. And that is not something that you want to do, right? You have an experience with what's called covert conditioning. Now, I'm going to put this in the chat box because this is a new word. Covert conditioning. What does covert conditioning mean? It means that you are being tagged the black sheep, tagged the scapegoat, tagged the identified patient, tagged the problematic person in your life, right? But this is happening not in front of everybody within the family. It is an undercurrent, sneaky agenda. So covert conditioning is an undercurrent, sneaky agenda of a covert conditioning, is an undercurrent, sneaky agenda of abusive family members to box you in a corner. I'm putting it in my own words. So box you into a corner, cause you to internalize blame, and accept that you are the problem. Covert conditioning. If that process happens over and over and over and over again, it's conditioning you. It's conditioning you. Conditioning is a theory that says if you continue to do something over and over and over, it becomes a pattern. And sometimes those patterns in an interesting way conditions you, right? And so you automatically fall into that role because you're conditioned to. So covert conditioning is I'm placing all the blame upon you, not in a verbal way, right? Not in a way that can always be seen with your own two eyes, but in a way that you can feel it. And you know what I think about you, right? So covert conditioning. There is also this emotional manipulation that happens, right? And it builds more guilt. You know, maybe mom wasn't a very good parent. She was cold, callous, and disrespectful. Maybe your dad was a little bit better. So you lean more towards your dad, right? But emotional manipulation happened where your mom manipulated you into a position, and now your dad believes that you're nothing like him, but more so you're more like your mom. And so he has locked you and your mom out of his life, right? And so then that can add to your feelings of guilt in a very, very interesting way. Now, let's jump into what happens when you are living a life of guilt. You're feeling guilt and responsibility for something that you should not. How do you unwire yourself, right? How do you uncondition yourself? How do you come out of that mindset? And this is what research in psychology says. When you are in a dynamic that has conditioned you, you have to get into the mode of strategically trying to heal. Strategically trying to heal. And your strategy may be a variety of things, right? It may be getting back on track with your health, losing a few pounds, getting better sleep, taking supplements, getting a sleep study, right? Journaling every day, praying, reading your Bible, going to the store and getting tons of books to expand your knowledge, sitting on YouTube with educational people, right? Watching inspirational videos on YouTube. That can also be psychologically healthy. Inviting nice people into your world, reinventing your holidays, right? Reinventing your life in a lot of ways, putting yourself through a renewal, right? Changing your hairstyle, cutting your hair, growing your hair, using different colors, right? There are a variety of things that you can do to help, push yourself forward, right? But research suggests, and I've also seen this in my clinical practice and working with people who are dealing with this, and these are things that I've had personal and professional experience with. The number one thing that you want to do is unpack unpack the guilt. Unpack the guilt. I help my clients do this all the time. Unpacking the guilt means this, that I'm going to look at this box of guilt that I've held on to for so long. I'm going to unpack, why is that a piece of the puzzle for me? Why am I feeling guilt over this one? Why am I feeling guilt over that, right? So consider yourself going through this big box of all your feelings of guilt, right? And one at a time, take out those different components until you can figure out why you feel the way you feel. And I can almost guarantee you, I'm going to say about 95% sure that once you start doing that, you will start seeing things in that box that you should not blame yourself for, you know? So kind of look at it as, I'm unpacking the guilt, one piece of guilt at a time, you know? One piece of the puzzle at a time. The other thing is you want to consider a trauma timeline. Now, you can do this with a very good therapist, or you could do this on your own. Let me give you a link if you want to do a trauma timeline on your own. I'm going to give you a PDF. Somebody tell me if you can pull this PDF up, but I'm going to give you, here we go. All right, trauma timeline worksheet, okay? I'm going to put this in the chat box. So this is a trauma timeline. I love trauma timelines. There are some rules. There we go. There's a link. There are some rules to the trauma timeline, which is probably why you should do this with a therapist. But you can kind of do like a rough draft for yourself. You go back to a time that you remember being the most abused, or you remember being traumatized, or you remember being neglected and manipulated, okay? Go all the way back to that first experience. Work your way up to the now, right? And you're going to use dates, times, and details. And it's kind of like a map of why you feel as you do. And sometimes it's really nice to have that. But I encourage you to do this with a therapist. You can also look up a therapist who does brief, focused therapy, brief, focused psychotherapy. And really what that means is this, that I'm going into therapy with one specific goal. I have to make sure that my therapist is somebody who provides brief therapy, solution-focused therapy, where we're going to find a solution, we're going to try to accomplish what I need to accomplish, and then therapy is over within a series of 10 sessions, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. Usually I start my clients off when they are brand new with a 3-month time period, and at the 3-month mark, we revisit. Is this working? Is it not working? Are you getting better? That kind of thing. So you can find a therapist who does that. I would ask about the trauma timeline. Okay. Develop a natural and healthy defense mechanism. You don't want to be in denial. You don't want to minimize. You don't want to, push back to your subconscious things that are uncomfortable and painful. But what you do want to do is develop healthy defense mechanisms. What's a healthy defense mechanism? Learning how to set a proper boundary and sticking to it, right? Another healthy defense mechanism is journaling all your thoughts and feelings, right? And making sure that you keep negative people out of your space. So develop healthy defense mechanisms. You want to, in some way, drop, if you have this or you're carrying this, drop the how do I want to put this? False idea of responsibility to the abuser. So drop the false idea of a responsibility to the abuser. In other words, you don't have a responsibility to the abuser at all. So there's no need for you to feel guilty, right? Drop it. The other thing is watch your cognitive distortions. Watch your cognitive distortions. Cognitive distortions are skewed ways that we tend to process our reality. Let me give you cognitive distortions list. I'm going to give this to you. These are not all of them, but it's some of them. So cognitive distortions list. I'm going to try to post all these links too in the comments section so you can just be able to click on them. So cognitive distortions, be aware of them and very much try to ignore them and push them down, right? Because they tend to be skewed. You want to reinvent yourself, right? Reinvent yourself. Reinvent special occasions. Christmas, reinvent it. Thanksgiving, reinvented. Birthdays, anniversaries, reinvented, right? Reinvent a piece of yourself as well. Identify dependency and learn to unwire yourself from that dependency. The more you're dependent on another person, the more of a tighter bond to guilt, pain, fear, isolation, and withdrawal you're going to have. So even if that person is your safety person, unwire from that dependency, right? It's only going to fuel that internal conflict. It's going to fuel that internal flame. Don't self-diagnose, guys. I know it's hard. I self-diagnose myself too sometimes, but I think I have a good reason for doing so. I feel like I'm in the healthcare profession, so I can kind of do that. But you don't want to self-diagnose. Don't say that you have complex PTSD without a diagnosis. Don't say that you have PTSD or depression without a diagnosis, because it may or may not be. Sometimes diagnoses are so complex, it really could be chronic stress and you're calling it PTSD. So try to stay away from that as much as you can. Rebuild elements of your life a little bit at a time. Rebuild different elements of your time a little at a time. You know, I'm going to buy my first home. I'm going to buy my first car. I'm going to go traveling more often. I'm going to hang out with friends who are healthy for me more often. I'm going to go to conferences and, you know, concerts, and the list goes on. Reinvent certain elements of your life. These are what we would call holistic tools and tips on how to release yourself from guilt and kind of create a different way that you are perceiving and engaging in life. Does that make sense, guys? So there's more that we could talk about, but I'm going to end it here. I have to go, and it's 8:40 p.m. Eastern time, but that will be my last tip, guys, is just rebuild elements of your life a little bit at a time. Guys, this is a lot, right? We talked about guilt that should not be yours, right? Guilt that is often placed upon you as the black sheep, the scapegoat, right? Abusive family members who reinforce your guilt because they are not allowing you to live peacefully and with freedom. There's no family individuation. They don't know how to just bolster you to the top. And quite frankly, they may not want to. So there's little autonomy that you have, you know? You don't have a differentiated self, meaning you don't have an identity that is separate from your family because of how they have kind of crushed your ability to be a free thinking individual. You know, the other piece is covert incest. Research suggests that if you have a parent who's parentified you, or you're the surrogate spouse of that parent, it can kind of cause you to feel not only a traumatic bond, but you can feel manipulated and abused, and you can also feel guilty and responsible, right? There's emotional and psychological conflict within you that burns like a fire. And part of that is because the abuser who wants power and control continues to be nice 1 minute, mean the next, open 1 minute, deceptive the next. They shift on you, right? And so this is everything we talked about tonight. I'm just kind of like summarizing it for you. But coming up Tuesday, you're not going to want to miss Tuesday's video. Something so cool coming up on Tuesday. So make sure that you check my community section tab, because I'm going to make sure I post the information Sunday night or Monday, so you'll know what's coming up on Tuesday. And then, of course, I'll be back Friday and Saturday. All right, guys, I'm not going to be able to read a ton of comments, but let me scroll through and just say hello to you and choose just a couple, because I really need to get out of here in the next 5 minutes. Erica Jade, hello and welcome to the channel. It's good to have you. Erica Jade says, hello everyone. My brother's wedding reception is tomorrow and I'm not going because I don't want to be ganged up on all weekend. This is the first time I've chosen me. I'm so glad for this live stream and so glad that this was helpful to you. And honestly, I hate to say that maybe you do have to go that route, right? Because you can't get along with family members. Why practically traumatize yourself, put yourself in a situation that you know is not going to benefit you in the long run? Why do that, right? So I totally get it. But what you want to consider, in case you haven't considered it already, is, will my brother ever see me the same? Will I have access to children that they may or may not have? Does that matter to me? right? And will I interfere with other relationships with other family members if I don't go? And if your answer to those three questions are, doesn't really matter to you, then maybe you are making the right decision. It's your mental health, it's your emotional health. You got to do what works for you, right? So I totally understand you. It's a tough position you're in. Tough position. All right, let's keep moving, guys. The Good Glow says, sounds like the environment I was raised in. Autonomy was non-existent, which set the stage for indecisiveness and second guessing myself. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Phoenix says, yeah, I've been in the fog for a while now. I really need to take care of myself, but too worried about everyone else and feel it's my responsibility. I have to beg for help and can hardly get it. Oh my God. Isn't that depressing when you start to feel like you have to beg for help? It's like, why do I have to do this? We are family, right? We're supposed to love each other. We're supposed to respect each other. Okay. Let's keep moving, guys. Laura Fit, hello, my friend. It's so good to see you. What happened here? Give me 1 second, guys. What is going on? Okay, Laura Fit, it's good to see you. Welcome back to tonight's live chat. Okay, sorry, guys. Axe to Edge says, don't feel guilty about anything. Reason being, I think deeply before I act. I treat people right, am self-aware, so I know when I am wrong and quickly apologize. Absolutely. Yep. Isn't that wonderful when you can kind of be that self-aware? Yeah. My friend Smita says, ooh, what's a differentiated self? I'm so getting out my pencil. Yep. Did you hear it? Did you hear it, my friend Shmita? Differentiated self is your identity that's apart from your family. So it's differentiated. It's part from your family, right? So family is here. You can be over here and be separate from them and have an identity. Yeah, that doesn't happen in toxic family dynamics at all. Ronald Zion, hello, my friend. It's good to see you. Welcome back. Okay, keep moving. MS says, my mother was furious with me for wanting my own identity. My brothers gave up. How sad for these men. And how dare they try to silence me? I totally understand. Totally understand. Yes. Okay. NGO says, I noticed that sometimes my mother looks at me a weird way when I'm in a towel walking out of the bathroom, going to the bedroom. Oh, Oh, I don't know what to say about that. I would so not do that anymore if I were you. Yeah. And if you're getting that kind of vibe, something is terribly wrong. Terribly wrong. Goodness, NGL. Christina Smith says, how can you feel guilt for leaving people who treated you like dirt? It was actually very freeing and rejuvenated my life. And I really took off, accelerated after walking from them. Totally understand. Totally understand. Yes. Some people do feel guilt, though. They assume guilt that is not supposed to be their responsibility. Shauna Thompson says, this is all clicking into place right now. Good to know. I hadn't thought of it this way before, but I relate so much. Thank you, Tamara. You're welcome. You're welcome. I'm so glad this was helpful. All right, guys, one more comment before we go. MT, hello and welcome. Good to see you and welcome to the channel. MT says, hi, Tamara and all. Just learned about your channel. I'm loving what you have to say, and I look forward to what others have to say. Thank you so much, and I'm so glad to have you. So glad to have you. I love seeing new people in the chat box, guys. Here's another new person. Hello and welcome to the channel. It's so good to have you. Soul H2O Yachts. Am I saying that right? I hope I did. They say, I appreciate this live, especially the terminology. It's good to hear. So glad. All right, let's keep moving. MT says, I'm going to highlight this in the chat box. MT says, gotta love yourself first. Makes loving others much more effective and real. Doesn't it? Doesn't it? I love that. Totally love that. All right, few more comments, guys, before we go. Miss Janine, I can't go without saying hello to you. Welcome to tonight's live chat. Miss Janine says, my family was so distant with emotion. I've never felt like I've really ever known them except physically, never mentally. I've never really had friends, just coworkers, temporary. Yeah, I totally understand. And that relationship dynamic doesn't have to be your fault. It could be the result of intergenerational trauma. It could be the result of maybe you fearing people and not trusting them. It can also be, maybe you have a certain way that you live your life or the way that you think, and other people just aren't there with you. There's so many ways that we can look at that and think of that, Don't feel like that's your fault. And Pulsar says, when I go to leave my toxic family, I will feel extremely guilty. I had to get a different therapist because she thinks family is everything. Oh God, I totally understand. Totally understand that. And please keep in mind that therapists are people too, right? And they are also people that don't necessarily have the same training. So my training tends to be pretty rigorous in trauma-informed psychotherapy, family theory, right? Specifically structural behavior therapy, structural family therapy, which is a family therapy approach. So there's a variety of exposure that I've had in training that maybe that therapist over there didn't have, right? Or there's a lot of training that my wonderful mentor has had that I haven't had. And so when I get stuck, I have to run to him because he knows exactly what I'm talking about and he knows more than me. So keep in mind, and Pulsar, therapists are not always on the same level, even if they have similar credentialing. And even if they have an ability to kind of make sense out of some things, it doesn't mean that they're going to have a sense out of all things, right? And one last thing with this too, sometimes therapists are just starting out. They've only been doing this for 4 years. They've only been doing this for 5 years, 6 years. I didn't become an expert, if you will, in these matters until I hit age 33, right? And at age 33, that was my 10th or 11th year in the field. And I've been doing this for 16 years. So keep that in mind. Sometimes you do, and Pulsar, have to walk away from even the therapist. Nancy says, Tamara's lives are something special and her community reflects Tamara's efforts. Total love to all of you. You all make my day. That's such a beautiful, humbling comment. Thank you so much, Nancy R. And I think that we're going to end on that comment. Yes, because you guys have a ton of good comments following, and I have to leave, and I think it's time for us to wrap up. Let's pause here, okay, guys? For those of you who say that you can't see the active chat box in the video that comes up after we sign off, let me know. Please contact me in the comment section. Let me know if you can or cannot see the chat box, because I can click on the chat box and I see all of your comments, okay? And the communication between you. So if you're having trouble finding that, let me know in the comments. I'll lead you to the place that you need to go. Guys, thank you so much for being with me over the past 2 days. Hope these 2 live chats have been helpful to you. Thank you for your condolences and your continual support of me and the community. I will see you Tuesday, and then I will also see you next Friday and Saturday. All right, guys, I love you so much. Bye-bye.